What is going on with USCIS? They're even calling green card holders, in so many words, visitors. We're going to be talking about the social media posts that they've been posting, alluding to this, and so much more. Hi, my name is Kaushik Ranchod. I'm an immigration attorney that's been practicing immigration law for over 23 years, and let's dive into it. First of all, let's look at one of the biggest changes that we've seen with USCIS, and that is the NTA Surge. When you are called to immigration court, you get what's called a notice to appear. Now, what's changed with this administration is the dramatic increases in notices to appear and when they're issuing them. In the prior administration, if your case was denied, your case was not normally put into removal proceedings and you were not issued a notice to appear. This administration, you could be removable if your case was denied. So let's look at what that could mean for you. Like, let's say you're out of status, but you married a US citizen, you made a simple mistake on the application, but your green card application was denied because of that mistake or omission or whatnot. Then you would be put into removal proceedings. You would get what's called a notice to appear in immigration court. The notice to appear is basically the first step in removal proceedings. And that would be all because of that one mistake that was made. So they're not having mercy like the prior administration. In fact, that's their tone. They're saying, we are not going to have mercy. You are a visitor in the United States. This is a privilege, not a right. Well, no doubt. Everyone knows that it's a privilege to have a visitor visa or a green card. But the tone that that's basically showing is a very confrontational, adversarial tone that's different from the prior administration, which was a more welcoming and engaging tone. Let's also look at the fact that USCIS is also a benefits-driven agency. It's not an enforcement agency, but now what's happening, and this is tied into the notices to appear, is that USCIS is connected with ICE. So if there's a denial, then it goes into removal proceedings. That's why we're hearing about arrests happening at citizenship interviews or green card interviews. Although USCIS is supposed to be a benefits-driven agency, now it's being intertwined with enforcement. Now let's look at a real perspective here of what's actually happening. So you have an idea of what does this mean in the real world. And I can just tell you from my last interview that I went to a couple of weeks ago, the officer was fair. It wasn't like, oh, your application is just going to get denied. However, the application was asking a lot more questions that I've seen in the past, questions that if answered incorrectly could have led to a denial. The officer was also interested in the petitioner's immigration history as well. So I don't want you to have the idea that all the applications are going in and getting denials and notices to appear. There's no reason to be unnecessarily fearful. It's just that the standard has become much higher and the stakes are much higher, because if your application gets denied, then that could mean that you could have to fight your case in removal proceedings rather than having your case before USCIS and having it be an administrative filing. You might be wondering, okay, well, what happens if I get notice to appear? What next? Once you receive the notice to appear, you'll be given a date, or at a later time given a date of when to appear in immigration court. It's very important that you do go to immigration court, because if you don't show up, then your case is automatically denied. Immigration will have their attorney, and you should hire an immigration lawyer who specializes in deportation law. We don't do deportation law at our firm. If you wanted to call us, we could refer you to someone. Make sure you find competent legal counsel. This is not something that you want to do by yourself. It's a very complicated area of law where you need an attorney, and then you'll have your case before a judge. We have been seeing an increase of individuals contacting us because they've received notice to appear. We had one case where we filed an appeal for the client because the I-130 was denied. We were not retained for the I-130, just for the appeal. After we filed the appeal, the client was issued a notice to appear. The appeal eventually even got approved. This is an example of an administrative filing. I-130 petition was denied with a green card application, led to a notice to appear. Now, not every decision leads to a notice to appear. If you're in a lawful status, like an H-1B status, for instance, and you're applying for a green card and the green card's denied, but you still have an underlying status, then you're not going to get a notice to appear. Also, certain types of humanitarian cases, it's up to USCIS's discretion of whether or not they're going to issue a notice to appear as well. The concerning policy about this enforcement-driven approach is that this is not just for applications that are being filed now, this is also for applications that have already been filed. With this change in USCIS policy, they're also attacking green card holders as well. They've said in their social media posts, or even JD Vance said, that green cards are visitors.
A green card holder, even if I might like that green card holder, doesn't have an indefinite right to be in the United States of America, right?
And in their social media posts, green cards and visitors are being lumped into one category, when you probably know those are two very distinct categories. Visitors are here to visit, or if you're on a non-immigrant visa, you're here with very certain restrictions in terms of how long you can stay and what you can do, and whether it be working or as a student. Whereas a green card holder, they're called permanent residents, meaning you can permanently stay. You're not just here as a visitor, you're here permanently as long as you don't break the laws, such as being outside the United States for too long or committing certain types of crimes. So for immigration to actually, in a way, ignore the law, lump green cards with visitors, is actually quite concerning, because that's not even in alignment with what the law states. What's the bottom line if you're a green card holder? Make sure that you don't go outside of the United States for an extensive amount of time, where you could be considered that you've abandoned your residency. You should not be outside the United States for more than 180 days. If you're going to be traveling a lot, consider filing for a re-entry permit. And of course, don't commit any crimes. Now, where do you need to be cautious if you are applying for citizenship? This is where they are asking questions about your prior green card status. So it is very important that you are prepared for your citizenship and be prepared to answer questions about how you obtained your green card. Also, if you have any criminal issues, that's also another thing that can come up at your citizenship interview, or if you leave the United States and come back in. Now, while USCIS has been posting these types of social media posts, they have been positively talking about immigrants who are in the military. So if you're in the military, let's talk about some of the things that might be available to you. You could possibly get a family member, such as a spouse or a parent, a green card. You could help them get what's called military parole in place. You may have expedited processing if you're filing I-130 petition, depending upon certain situations. For instance, if you're going to be deployed. Also, you may have expedited naturalization. That is one positive in all of the negativity that's been out there. The bottom line is USCIS is treating everyone as a visitor except for US citizens, even green card holders. Since February, they've issued more than 26,700 notices to appear under new enforcement priorities. This is a major shift from past practices. What can you do? Well, now the stakes are too high to go it alone. Make sure you hire an attorney that is competent, that you trust, to move forward in your immigration process. Immigration is actually very complicated. A lot of times people think it's just filling out forms, but there's law behind each of those questions on the forms. And it's also, like for instance, in a waiver case, it's how you communicate and how articulate you are in communicating your arguments. Now is the time to get things done right. It's still possible to get a green card, a waiver, a visa. It just needs to be done the right way. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. It does help the algorithm, and it helps me just continue to do more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you would like to get more updates. Bye for now.